This poem came through one spring when I was sitting near the base of Pikes Peak in Colorado Springs, Colorado. And it's about one of our most precious earthly commodities necessary to sustain life. You give us life, we need you. You give us life, we're composed of you. You give us life, we've dishonored you. You give us life, we play with you. You give us life, we worship you. You give us life, we try to tame you. You give us life, we want to own you. You give us life, we cannot live without you. And the title of this poem is Water's Gift.
All things are possible. First time I heard that, I was about 5 or 6 years old, sitting in Bethel Baptist Church next to my big Nana in West Philadelphia. Turns out, we live in an amazing place and all things are possible. Hello, deep flyers. Are you ready to fly deep into the consciousness of science? As always, I am happy to be with you as we share another Fly Deep, Rise Above adventure. If you're a first-time flyer on the channel, my name is Clay, and we've been flying deep into the existential questions facing humanity, and then we rise above with aerial videos set to soul-soaring song. Our aerial flight for this post will take us further north along the San Antonio River, through a semi-industrial, semi-botanical area of the city. If you enjoy this Fly Deep, Rise Above adventure, remember to click the subscribe button and or notification bell so you will be notified of future posts. This will be the last video in this series, but not the last video. My heartfelt thanks to all of you deep flyers who watched, liked, shared, or subscribed. Now, FYI, the channel is not monetized, as that allows me to use certain copyrighted materials to enhance the viewing experience. It's been a brave journey, and I thank you for taking it with me. Let's wrap this series up and get ready for the next. In our last post, we flew deep into the emerging age of Aquarius, exploring the technology disruptions to the existing global system of production that will help usher in the new age of human evolution. These disruptions are already in progress and will swiftly overtake the existing system of production during the 2020s and into the 2030s. Clean energy and steady demonetization of basic human commodities such as food, shelter, transportation, information, and healthcare will change our relationship to our world and to each other. Through our collective imaginations, powered by heart-centered intent, we will help manifest these changes into physical reality. If you've been flying with us for a while, you've probably figured out that we interact with the quantum vacuum, aka the Planck field, just as a matter of existence. We influence the field and are influenced by the field through the electromagnetic vibrations generated from our collective and individual thoughts. Thoughts are things, and they reflect our consciousness. So how has science affected our consciousness, the source of our thoughts? To explore that landscape, let's take a cruise through the history of our science. Ready? Buckle in and let's fly deep. We live in an amazing place, and we are amazing. But I'm not so sure we've been told just how amazing we actually are. We, however, have been given a glimpse of this wondrous universe through our science. The dictionary defines science as knowledge about or study of the natural world based on facts learned through experiments and observation. We may be surprised to learn that our science is only about 400 years old. Relative to the 6,000 or so years our civilization has existed, that's a fairly short time. If our civilization was shown on a 24-hour clock, our science will have shown up at about 10:24 p.m., about the last hour and a half of the day. But upon its birth, science immediately began to produce technology, and technology began to change the consciousness of humanity. This high-tech world of magic we experience today happened in just 400 years. Imagine the technology of a species that has thousands or millions of years head start on us. Let's begin our science trek on Earth in the 1600s. A mere 400 years ago, with the French scientist René Descartes, the father of modern philosophy, founder of analytical geometry, mathematician, and the guy who said, cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. Unpacking that statement, what Descartes was saying is that the only thing he could really be sure of is that he existed. Everything else could be a dream, alluding to the idea that the physical reality he experienced may be the illusion of a deeper reality, a non-physical reality, a reality beyond the perception of the human senses of sight, touch, smell, hearing, and taste. Descartes introduced the concept of dualism, the separation of mind and matter. Now, Descartes walked a fine line between the physical and non-physical during his life's work. He was living during the time of the Renaissance and the Enlightenment, a time when scientists were beginning to rub up against the priests and mystics who held firm influence over the consciousness of their societies. He was acutely aware of what happened to other European philosophers and researchers, such as the Italian mathematician and cosmologist Giordano Bruno, and the Italian astronomer Galileo Galilei. Giordano Bruno, whose statue now stands in the place of his death, was burned at the stake in Rome's Campo dei Fiori in 1600 for his vehement, non-repentant shout-out for Nicholas Copernicus' heliocentric theory. Copernicus outlined his theory that the Earth revolved around the Sun in his manuscript De Revolutionibus, On the Revolutions, which was published in 1566, 23 years after his death. The heliocentric theory that the Earth and planets revolved around the Sun was in direct conflict with Holy Roman Church doctrine, which described the Earth as the center of the universe and all things cosmic revolving around the Earth. Galileo, who had made significant improvements to magnification of the telescope, was also a big fan and vocalizer of heliocentrism. But he decided to be a little more repentant than Bruno and was allowed to live out the latter part of his life under house arrest. Now, acutely aware of the fate of his predecessors and contemporaries, Descartes forged a compromise whereby science would strictly stick to observation and experimentation of the physical material world, and leave the non-physical spiritual world to the reigning priests and mystics. And so was born the materialist scientific method of the Western world. In 1768, close to 200 years after publication of Copernicus' De Revolutionibus, heliocentrism was no longer considered heresy. By that time, science, which was beginning to deliver practical solutions to ease human toil, was encroaching on the influence of the church. A more informed population influenced the institutional change, a clear demonstration of the power of the people. Over time, the materialist approach to science morphed into scientific dogma, whereby throughout the 20th century, consciousness or any hint of a creator has been forbidden in most, if not all, university theoretical physics classrooms. Natural laws are limited to the physics of a non-living universe into which biologists are expected to fit their explanations of life. Even as science has demonstrated the remarkable creative and innovative abilities of our human species, as we begin the 21st century, materialist dogma has brought the study of theoretical physics to its own self-imposed limits in describing the reality we experience. Another significant influencer of our current science was Charles Darwin. Darwin's theory of evolution emerged around the beginning of the Industrial Revolution with the publication of his book on the origin of species. Darwin's theory of natural selection by random mutation led to the meme survival of the fittest, which morphed into survival of the strongest. Darwin himself, however, had actually referred to survival of the most adaptable to change. By the time of the Industrial Revolution, science had a firm grip on social influence, and even as Darwin himself noted that his theory may not be entirely correct, that it may be subject to yet undiscovered underlying phenomena, the burgeoning business community was all too eager to adopt competition as natural law. Today, the ideas of random mutation and competition are being challenged by growing numbers of physicists as advances in quantum science suggest a different story. The mathematics suggests that a randomly operating universe, even in the 13.8 billion years it has existed, would not have produced a single blade of grass, let alone complex life. Current DNA and cellular studies are showing clear evidence of a self-organizing intelligence propelling the complexities of biological systems, an intelligence that works via cooperation versus competition. Even predator-prey relationships are cooperative. Predators maintain their prey species as a healthy food supply by recycling the least healthy, rather than going for the prime catch. The point is that our current global organizing system and its institutions were established by a consciousness that views the universe we inhabit as the result of an arbitrary event that produced a non-living universe. Biological life is the result of random collisions of random particles with no particular meaning behind it. And everything is separate from everything else, and we are in competition with each other for our very survival. That's a recipe for the world we experience today. Science plays a major role in shaping our collective consciousness. And that's why it is important at this pivotal time in the evolution of our species that the richer, deeper, unifying implications of unified quantum physics be widely exposed to the human population. So that just as human consciousness influenced the 1768 revolutionary paradigm shift that removed humanity from the center of all things, it can influence the next revolutionary shift that moves us from a paradigm of separation and competition to one of connectedness and cooperation.
And if you don't know, now you know. And if you don't know, now you know. And if you don't know, now you know. And if you don't know, now you know.
Time to rise above. This post-Rise Above flight continues to take us further north along the San Antonio River, headed towards downtown San Antonio. We'll fly over the Roosevelt Park area of the river, exploring a mix of industrial infrastructure and the lush greenery along the river banks. We have rhythmic cruising sounds to match the diverse scenery through which this historic waterway flows. The artists are listed in the credits at the end of the video. Enjoy the flight, groove to the tunes, and we'll close on the other side. Come, fly with me. Hope you enjoyed that flight. A lot of interesting scenes in the Roosevelt Park area. It was a lucky break to catch the trains rolling by. All right, our science is advancing as fast as everything else we see around us. And our understanding of quantum physics is telling us a much different story of who we are. It tells us that our universe and the biological life within are designed to work in harmonious cooperation at each level or scale of existence, from the tiny proton to the massive black hole we call the universe. Because we all know that the big stuff comes from the little stuff, the holy grail of science today is unification of the cosmos, big stuff, and the quantum, little stuff, which our current mainstream science has not yet resolved. They are still wrestling with dark matter, dark energy, gravity, how consciousness arises from non-living matter, and a host of other quandaries that impede a unification theory. Throughout these videos, I have promoted Nassim Haramein's unified physics because it is real. It is simple in its conception. It accounts for all of our human experience, to include those of the non-physical, so-called paranormal. It solves Einstein's relativity equations. It is mathematically precise and elegant, and it resolves all of the quandaries of modern science and provides the framework for consciousness and quantum gravity. It also provides the path to technologies that are absolutely mind-blowing. But perhaps most significantly, it explains the science behind ancient and indigenous rituals, as well as modern spiritual practices such as prayer and meditation. It repairs the gap between science and spirituality that was forged by Rene Descartes some 400 years ago. It reveals a living universe where everything is connected. Human beings are participatory co-creators, and consciousness is primary. It shows us how matter manifests from consciousness and not the other way around. Looking for consciousness inside the brain is like looking for the announcer inside the radio. And the same holds true for memory. Mr. Haramein's unified physics profoundly changes the story of us. It suggests that the story of us is bigger than we've ever imagined, and does it through verifiable science. Now, because Nassim is a self-educated institutional outsider, his almost 40-year body of work is relatively ignored. Interestingly enough, Mr. Einstein, who initially was also an outsider, was treated similarly when he equated matter with energy and told us that space-time bends, and it bends toward infinity. And that launched the possibility of what we today know as a black hole. Now, we have to remember that our science institutions, like other institutions, are created and influenced by human beings subject to the political, power-grabbing, egotistical propensities that unfortunately are a part of our human existence. Sometimes it's just tough to acknowledge we may be wrong. Even so, a growing number of physicists across the planet recognize the efficacy of Mr. Haramein's unified physics. Mr. Haramein's contributions to physics include predicting massive black holes at the center of galaxies 20 or so years before we found one. Turns out that black holes are ubiquitous. They are everywhere in our universe, and they are the significant pieces to the unification puzzle. In 2012, Mr. Haramein correctly predicted the charge radius of the proton, whereas the mainstream physics prediction was 4% off, magnitudes off at the quantum scale. Mr. Haramein's prediction was confirmed in 2013 by experiments conducted using the Large Hadron Particle Collider in Switzerland, and is now the official charge radius of the proton, forcing mainstream physics to reevaluate many of their previous calculations. He's hoping to submit his complete theory for peer review and publication sometime within the next year. This could be a big deal. I've left links to a couple of videos where in plain language he describes the essential elements of his theory and how it integrates with our human experience. If you clicked on the link for the connected universe and you went to some other link, I have repaired that, and so that link will send you to the actual movie. I also left a link to the inspirational video from the 2021 Rise Up Summit. I encourage you deep flyers to give them a view. Albert Einstein once said, "There are only two ways to live your life. One is as though nothing is a miracle. The other is as though everything is a miracle." Those of us who join him in choosing the latter live in an amazing world of infinite possibilities. This is the last video in this series. My hope is that the time we spent together has added value to your understanding of our existence and perhaps of yourself. I am convinced that our world, our universe, and our story are so much bigger than we've been told. Beautiful people, I've really enjoyed creating these videos. For me, it's like playing in the sandbox and trying to build a bigger and better castle each time. I'm taking a break for the rest of this year, but I'm looking forward to a new series of videos beginning in January or February. So, if you're subscribed, stay subscribed. And if you're not subscribed, do it now so you're notified of future adventures. Until then, let's continue to take care of each other. Remember, love is the highest vibration, fear is the lowest vibration, and the source of anger. We've got a fantastic future awaiting us, so let's keep doing our best to hold a high vibration and a smile in our hearts. We are the power. Power to the people. Stay inspired. Happy holidays. Namaste.